So I got to watch James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. In fact, I rushed home to do this review. I didn't even have time to change this inner shirt. I guess this kind of adds to the ridiculousness of The Suicide Squad. You know, for a while I've been wondering, was this going to be James Gunn's The Guardians of the Galaxy, but just over at DC? Well, after watching the movie, it does feel different from Guardians of the Galaxy. Not only there's a lot more swear words, but it's very brutal, it's very violent, it's very gory. I almost want to be inclined to say that it feels more like a Quentin Tarantino movie. I mean, even the way the scenes sometimes hop back in time 3 days earlier today, 8 minutes earlier, it kind of reminds me of Quentin Tarantino movie where they kind of do that in like Pulp Fiction or Hateful Eight, and in a cool way it's almost like chapter markers. Now from the beginning I already knew there was going to be a lot of people dying in this movie. A lot of the squad members are not going to make it out alive, and they were right. In fact, the beginning sequence really just drives home that anyone and everyone could die in a brutal fashion out just like that. So right from the beginning, you have the feeling of stakes are high because you just know, oh my god, they could just literally get off right now. It also really sets up the character Amanda Waller. Once again, Viola Davis nails it as Amanda Waller. Just as cruel, just as unemotional, just as conniving as she was in the first Suicide Squad. Speaking of the first Suicide Squad, I feel this is the sequel to the first Suicide Squad. And even though Warner Brothers and James Gunn says you don't have to watch the first Suicide Squad, I beg to differ. I think having watched the first Suicide Squad, you have this feeling that Rick Flag and Captain Boomerang and Harley Quinn know each other already, and there's a relationship there from the first one that actually transfers to this one, making some scenes a lot more impactful. This movie truly is about the characters, and the characters that I actually do kind of care about. Ratcatcher, probably the heart of the movie. I mean, I'm still wondering, how did she get into this mess? And in a way, it kind of brings forward the conversation of the sins of the father, and in that way, she kind of connects to Bloodsport because he has a similar issue. I never thought I'd say that I actually was very interested and really like the Polka Dot Man and the King Shark. I thought there was just going to be some side characters that, you know, later on nothing will come of it. But I'm happily surprised that they're really cool. I like Polka Dot Man and I like King Shark. Now, John Cena as Peacemaker is pretty much you'd expect from what you've seen in the trailers. Just very stoic, Terminator type, but I do love the rivalry between him and Bloodsport and being a better shot, and that's an interesting interaction between them, part of a weird dynamic in that group. But I like how that interaction really pays off in the end. And although Peacemaker was interesting, it didn't really compel me to be excited for the Peacemaker series. I almost want to watch a series that's based on Bloodsport, King Shark, maybe even Polka Dot Man. Rick Flag is pretty much the Rick Flag from the first movie. Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is awesome. I mean, at first you're kind of thinking, okay, this is kind of a normal character, not really Harley Quinn. I mean, she does give those moments of Harley Quinn until there's a scene in this where she flips all of a sudden and you're like, oh, that's right. She's crazy. She's psychotic. And he actually shows it there. And I love how she explains mentally what she's thinking in that scene, followed by an incredible action sequence from Harley Quinn. Hands down, probably right up there with her action sequences from Birds of Prey. Maybe even better. Now, we knew going into this that it was supposed to be a comedy, right? It's a hard R, it's comedic. And I gotta admit, not all the jokes landed. In fact, I didn't find myself laughing at some of the ridiculous ones. But there are a few times where there's situational comedy that actually was funny. I also noticed that this movie has some great pacing. Starts with a high action sequence. It slowly builds up into a spectacular, incredible finale that is pretty big, especially if you're a kaiju fan. I really love movie themes, so I was actually hoping that the Suicide Squad would have had some memorable scores, but honestly, I don't remember them at all. Even though they try to say this movie is kind of a movie like by itself, you can't really feel that this is part of the DC universe. You really feel like these characters have a rich backstory and, you know, Also, and of course, the galactic stuff like Starro. Not a lot of movies give you the feeling that something has happened before and that something can continue to happen after. This one does. This one really feels like it's implanted within a timeline of events that have happened and will eventually happen. So all in all, it was a pretty incredible, fun, thrill ride adventure, big spectacle. I am quite surprised by this movie, and I actually really dug it. I don't usually give ratings for movies at all, but maybe I should start doing it. Well, in this case, I feel like this movie is a solid 8 out of 10. And I guess the question is, should James Gunn come back to do more DC projects? You know what? I'd love to see what else he will be involved with from now on.